Hi, I'm Eric from longboxreview.com, and this is episode 50 of The Gutters, my audio journal. I haven't talked about what's going on in my life for a little bit. The Gutters episode was released in June 2025, but that only really covered stuff through the end of March 2025. So I wanted to catch you up on the things I have done through the rest of 2025. Now that it is 2026 as I record this, I also have a bunch of TV, movies, and podcasts to talk about, so buckle up. So what happened in my life after March? So in late May, early June, we went on a European vacation. My wife and I, along with my older daughter Brittany and her husband, and our younger daughter Maddie, we spent a few days in London, starting off with going to the Mamma Mia Experience, which was a dinner and show. And my wife had gotten us all tickets where we sat at a table, one of, I think, 4, maybe 5 tables that were up on I'll just call it the main stage. But the performance was all around in the theater, at least on the floor area. And so that was really cool to be sitting there eating and drinking while everybody else in the place are basically looking up at us the entire time. I tried not to think about that because that was a little too invasive for my taste. But we had a great time. It was a wonderful way to start our trip. And then the next day, we did a bit of touring of London, did some shopping, and then we were off to, I think the next day, we were off to Edinburgh by train. And I just want to say, and also my wife did another great job in booking us first class tickets on the train. And I think it was, I want to say between 2 and 4 hours. I don't really remember now how long it took us, but the service was incredible. The view was great. I want to travel by train all the time now, even here in the United States, which is, as far as I've been told, because I've never done it here, a complete, well, it's different. It's lesser than, shall we say. Anyway, we spent a couple of days in Edinburgh doing basically the touristy stuff, going to Edinburgh Castle. We strolled the Royal Mile, of course. My wife and I had already done this several years ago together, but the kids hadn't. So my wife and I were doing pretty much the same stuff that we did before. But it did afford me an opportunity to visit the best fish and chip shop that I've ever been to on 2 continents. I think it's called Clamshell. Anyway, great fish and chips there. And also was able to buy a nice jumper that I wear all the time now. Nice wool jumper that doesn't itch me, doesn't cause me to scratch myself all the time. And a couple rugby jerseys that were out and about. I know. It's the Royal Mile, so, I could probably get those things a little cheaper elsewhere. But, I'm glad I got them, and I wear them all the time. And then after that, we traveled by rental car to the Highlands of Scotland, and that was an experience. I can't remember if it was my daughter or my son-in-law who drove first. I think it was my daughter. And so, of course, we're driving on the other side of the road. The lanes are narrow. The hedges are tall. The corners are sharp. And oh my God, it was nerve-wracking. And then it was, at one point it was my turn, and we had rented this bus to carry all of our luggage and the 4 of us around. And I got quite nervous and kept inching over and over closer to the curb. At one point, I drove over the curb as we're going, like, I don't know, 40 miles an hour. And boy, that sure woke up people. But I don't know that I want to do that again, which is why I want to travel by train. Anyway, we only had one little, I'll say, accident where, and I was not driving, and I won't say who was driving, but we clipped another car's rear view mirror. So basically our two rear view mirrors clipped each other, and we had to have a little discussion with the driver there. So anyway, like I said, we went to the Highlands, and I can't remember the exact spot now. I think it was close to Sligagan. I think that's boy, I'm sure I'm butchering that. So those of you who live in Scotland, please forgive me for my pronunciations. But we were near there, I think, and we went on this little walking tour that basically followed the stream up on this path, and there's just the beautiful Highlands of Scotland around. Slightly misty weather, a little bit of fog up on the tops of the mountains. And I was overcome by the raw beauty of the land, and I kind of fell in love with the Highlands. Like I said, my wife and I had gone to Scotland many years prior, and we toured the Highlands in a bus. And we were able to get out and take some pictures, but we really didn't get a chance to just kind of walk around. And it was just so beautiful. And every time I think about it, I want to go back so bad. But, like I said previously, I didn't feel that same connection like I did this time. And I think it was because we were out and about in it. And, anyway, I've seen beautiful landscapes before. The Oregon coast springs to mind. But there's just something about being in the Highlands of Scotland that just really, like I said, spoke to me. And being in awe of my surroundings like that is not something I'm used to experiencing. So it was an experience. And I'm just in awe of it still. Even talking about it now, nearly a year later. Well, I guess, 3/4 of a year later. Anyway, after nearly a week there in Scotland, touring some towns, we ended up going to Inverness. Yeah, we did not make it to Glasgow, but we went to Inverness and didn't spend enough time there, and spent a night in a hotel that my wife got us. That was kind of central to the city, and it was horrible. It was a horrible place. I would not recommend it. And I'm forgetting the name of it, but I did do a Google review of it, and I was harsh in my review. So after nearly a week there in Scotland, we went to Ireland. We flew over there, spent a few days in Dublin, and that's where I kind of fell in love with eating raw oysters. Oysters on the half shell. It was delicious. And also, as we visited the pubs, both in Scotland and in Ireland, my son-in-law bonded over cider. We started drinking a lot of cider instead of like Guinness and other drinks, whiskey. Did we even try whiskey? I know that's like sacrilege. We didn't even have whiskey in either country. Anyway, like I said, we spent a few days in Dublin, and then went to the west, drove another rental car situation, drove to the west side of the island. And I mentioned before how nerve-wracking driving in Scotland was. Well, Ireland was even more so, because the roads seemed narrower, and the shrubs even taller. So yeah, there were a few times we were coming around corners, and there's no visibility, zero visibility as you go around them, and you're going around them at 30, 40 miles an hour. And the posted speed limit is like 50 kilometers an hour, on these little roads. And, there were a few times where I gripped the side of the seat because I wasn't driving. I didn't want to drive in Ireland. So my daughter and son-in-law did most of the driving. I don't think my wife, now that I come to think of it, I don't think my wife drove at all. So anyway, so there was that. We did drive through and spent a little bit of time in some incredible villages on the west side of the island. One of which was, I think, Killarney, and we visited the shop that originated the colada ring that is often mentioned or shown in television or movies and whatnot. I remember first seeing the colada ring and being introduced to what it meant in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer television show. Anyway, but I think one of the, just like in Scotland, being in the Highlands, the equivalent thing to me in Ireland was when we visited the Cliffs of Moher, and I took some wonderful pictures of both areas. But it was just majestic being in those places, and just like I said before, the raw beauty of the land. And I can't wait to go back. The highlight, of course, was the time that we spent together. Especially in the pubs, because we went to a lot of pubs. And there was, like I said, I think it was in Sligaken where we stayed at a place. They had their restaurant there, and we were there on a Sunday. So after visiting the Highlands, I should have said this before, but it just came to mind. Visited the Highlands, we drove back down there and we stayed there. But the restaurant, we walk in and they're serving Sunday dinner. And you only have that choice. It was 3 different kinds of meat, roast beef. Oh my God, I can't remember the other things. Turkey, maybe. Anyway, it was. We had Yorkshire pudding. It was delicious. It was one of the best meals that we had. So anyway, So we, then we spent about a week there as well, and we flew home. And that was the end of our European vacation. Normally I would, if I had done this earlier in the year, I would have provided a lot more details about our trip. But given the space of time here that I'm going to cover, I'm just giving you the highlights of it. Speaking of, in mid-June, so basically a week, I think it was, maybe a week and a half after we got back from Europe, Maddie and I went to Heroes Con in Charlotte. And I'll just tell you, you can hear more about that in case you missed it on episode 261. We also did a video showing all the goodies that we got while we were there. And I think that's in the show notes as well. A link to that is in the show notes. Or you can visit my YouTube page to watch that and other things as well. And then the next month in July, this was a kind of a surprise, not surprise. It was a very, we decided to go at last minute. What's the word for that? Anyway, we decided to go to New York City, Kitter and I, to see Jonathan Groff play Bobby Darin in the show Just in Time. Bobby Darin is one of my favorite performers. I discovered him when I was a DJ at a radio station in my hometown that I was at briefly, and ever since then, Bobby Darin is the shit, man. He is. I like him better than any of the other crooners from that time, and he's just a fascinating guy. There was a movie about him, Beyond the Sea, I think. Anyway. So, if you want to know more about that. But anyway, this show was basically telling this Bobby Darin's life story as a performer and how driven he was and all the challenges he faced, especially health-wise, his relationship troubles. Oh, boy. And Groff really, really channeled Bobby Darin's singing talent. And if you know anything about Jonathan Groff, and he was the guy that played the king in Hamilton. He's a spitter. So when he performs and you're nearby, you're going to get spit on because he just lets it go. Yeah. Anyway. So we sat not on the floor because there were tables on the floor where you could, kind of like the Mamma Mia experience, you could sit down there and Jonathan Groff and the other performers would walk by you, or they would stand on your table and perform. And I saw just before the show started, someone coming up to every table and talking to them. And I could see the people nodding that they were okay. And I assume that they were being warned that you're going to get spit on. And there was one woman at a table, and she was there by herself. And this is one, I think it was the center table. And Groff, he got on the table and was doing a number. And you could see the woman's face, and she would kind of jerk her head a little bit every once in a while because she was getting spit on. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but I didn't want that experience. So like I said, we sat on the side away from there. But my wife really tried to get me to sit at a table on the floor. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Anyway, I've heard Groff is no longer performing that. So if you see Just in Time, it's somebody else. But man, I highly recommend the show, even if Groff is not doing it. So yeah, it was awesome. In the meantime, and of course, we started this process before we went to Europe. So in May, we listed our house for sale. And of course, we're trying to sell my dad's house after he died during the same time. But, we told our realtor, hey, we don't want people bugging us while we're on our trip. And she's like, totally understand. And there was one showing of our house while we were gone. Because the market drastically changed going into the middle of last year. It was no longer a seller's market. The rising interest rates and the financial uncertainty of the time. Thanks a lot, Trump. The house selling market just really cooled, and we didn't sell our house until October. We did manage to sell my dad's house, in late July. So that was good. Because honestly, I thought that one would take longer. But the market in Lewiston, which was 30 miles away from where we lived, I should say, was a little different. And so we were fortunate to be able to sell it then, get that done. It felt like a chapter had been closed on that whole situation. I foolishly thought at the time. And like I said, then we waited and waited and waited. And, we showed our house many times. And nobody wanted it. It was mostly older people looking at the house. And the only feedback we ever got that was reasons as to why they weren't going to go forward was all the steps. Because it's a tri-level home. You have the living room at the base floor, and then you go up these stairs, and there's a second floor with a kitchen and all the main bedrooms, and then go down some stairs, and there's the basement area. So they just didn't want to do all the stairs. And let me tell you, now that we're in our new place with a bunch of stairs going up that I have to go to get into my office here. I completely understand, but man, it was frustrating because everybody liked it. They loved what we did to the remodel that we did in the kitchen and some of the other upgrades that we made. And it was just, like I said, frustrating. But then we did get an offer in October, and it was someone who was like, hey, we need an early closing. Can you do this? We're like, you betcha. We could do it. And then things drug out for another 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even a month. But we did indeed sell, and then closed on our new house in Vancouver, Washington, on the 16th of October. And we packed up that week and drove out the next weekend. And we've been here ever since. So, at least there's that. And since we've been here, we've been spending a lot more time, as was the plan, with our grandkids and also our older daughter, Brittany, and her husband. The grandkids have stayed over several times now, and grandson, up until recently, he's been very contrary with everyone recently. But until then, he was like, I want to stay here. I want to stay here all the time. He told his mom that he wants to stay with us forever at one point, which I thought was just adorable. But it's just been so nice that we get to spend much more time with them. As opposed to, 3 or 4 times a year that we were doing before. So yeah, it's been great having them here. So there's that. Like I said, I foolishly thought there was a chapter closed on my dad's situation. But as we were heading into December, there was a 2 to 3 week period where I was feeling abnormally anxious for most of those days. It was getting to the point where I was feeling I was overwhelmed and feeling a bit despondent. And after a few conversations over the course of those 2 weeks or so, I agreed with my wife for her to contact my doctor and see what the doctor recommended. The result of which was my doctor increasing my antidepressant dosage. It was just a little bit, another 5 milligrams of what I take, but it was enough. It was enough, and it gave me almost immediate relief. So I no longer felt that daily oppressive weight, that darkness that I feel. That I still struggle to describe how that makes me feel. It's kind of like you know how you feel when something doesn't feel right and you feel that the hairs on the back of your neck go up. That's how I feel all the time when I'm going through that. Or if you get a start and your heart races and you feel that adrenaline rush, and then right after that, as you're starting to calm down, you feel jittery maybe. That's how I feel. So, and I was feeling that every day, pretty much all day long for a good 2 week to 3 week period. So having that medication, which I had told my doctor back in September for my annual checkup with her, that I thought, I'm feeling pretty good. I want to consider getting off of this because I don't like to take pills if I don't need to. And she wisely said, "How about you don't do that until after the holidays?" And I agreed, and I've been taking my medication. I take it religiously every day. And so I just find it funny that, she knew. And she also said that, there's nothing wrong with, having some help like that with the medication. And so, yeah, listen to your doctor is, I guess, my point. Because I really wasn't until we contacted her again. And she's like, okay, do this. And so, that allowed me to actually enjoy the week of Christmas as well as my birthday. And if you are a longtime listener of the show and listen to these Gutters episodes, you know that December is not good because of my mother and my sister's birthday. They share the same birthday, and they also died in December, different years, of course. But, it's just, and I just don't like December. So yeah, it's a bad time. And then dealing with the fact that, some of the first Christmas, New Year's, all that, Thanksgiving for that matter, without my dad. So yeah, so now it's just me and my brother. Anyway, speaking of my birthday, let's switch topics here. My daughter Brittany and my wife surprised me with a birthday gift. It was a visit to a Star Trek themed escape room that is here. Well, no, it was in Portland, actually, in Portland, Oregon. It was so much fun. The premise is that you, as the escapees of the room, you play civilian technicians trying to repair the USS Discovery within an hour. So there's some catastrophic failures. All the bulkheads are closed. Nobody can get anywhere except us. So we were the closest to auxiliary control, and so you have to solve a lot of puzzles to get the initial door open, and then more puzzles, more clues you have to solve or gather and then solve to keep the Discovery from blowing up within that hour. And we did it with the help of many hints that we asked for. So thank goodness they do that. But we successfully completed repairs on the Discovery with 1 minute and 45 seconds left on the clock. But we would have failed if we didn't have those hints. So yeah, but it was so much fun. If you have such a thing, that we went to, I think it's called Escapology, which is, my daughter tells me, is a chain of escape rooms. So maybe you have one near you. And then a couple final things that actually happened in September, but I want to end on my life stuff, life talk with these. So back in September, I launched a TeePublic store to sell Longbox Review logoed merchandise, such as t-shirts, stickers, and magnets. I mentioned it on the main show before, but I wanted to mention it here in case you're curious. In fact, as of this recording earlier today, I added another design, basically the podcast logo design that you can buy those things with it on. I do recommend the Tri-Blend t-shirt, by the way, as opposed to the standard t-shirt, if you're curious. And like I said, also in September, I restarted my personal blog. So basically, if you want more of this kind of talk in a more timely and sometimes more in-depth written form, you can check it out. And that is at kayne.wordpress.com, and it's spelled Qayne, kayne.wordpress.com. And of course, I'll leave a link in there. I need to get back to that because when I started in September, I was basically I started like every day, and then it was every other day, and then it was once a week, and now it's whenever I feel like it. But yeah, I want to get back to doing that. All right, let's switch to some fun things, maybe, but fun things to talk about, entertainment-wise on television. And this is going to cover, like I said, quite a few months of stuff. Because I have been taking notes this whole time. I just hadn't gotten around to recording. So, first up is Doctor Who. It was Ncuti Gatwa's second and final season, it turned out. And I had a few notes here as I was taking them during the course of that season. He cries every episode, which kind of got annoying with me. I really like the character Joy in the Christmas special, and lament the Christmas special because we didn't get one in 2025. The Robot Revolution episode introduced us to Belinda Chandra, the next companion, and I loved her. I felt she was kind of Gatwa's Donna Noble to some degree. I'm not sure if I liked her being another companion that had some sort of cosmically special quality about her, because the Doctor realizes that he had seen her before in the episode Boom, and I don't know that was ever resolved in the series. Anyway, the episode Lux was fun with the animation aspects. Also, we had Doctor Who fans telling him that Blink was their favorite Doctor Who adventure, despite the other adventures he'd been on since then, which you could see visibly annoyed the Doctor in Gatwa's performance. I thought that was nice. The episode The Well was sufficiently creepy. I mean, really creepy. And the lone survivor Alice, or Elise, I forget now, was played very well by the actress Rose Ayling-Ellis. And then we got to the end of the season. A few notes there. I was very disappointed in how Belinda's role at the end was basically as a background character. I was surprised at the regeneration that happened and who appeared as Gatwa's replacement. And I won't reveal that. You can look it up, but it was like, what? Which is, I think that was the point. And all in all, I felt it was too short a tenure for Gatwa. And he's come out, saying some things about why he left. But the 2 seasons just were kind of a mess in some ways. And so not the strongest Doctor Who series that I've seen over the years. Speaking of not strong returns, I watched Twin Peaks: The Return. I found this playing for free on Pluto TV and quickly watched all 18 episodes because I wasn't sure how long it would be there. I enjoyed the first 2 episodes, the first of which I actually had watched years ago because it was played, I forget where. You could watch it for free on some streaming service, and then you had to, I think maybe it was Paramount. Had to have been Paramount because that's where it was on. But you have to be like a premium subscriber or a plus subscriber. I don't know, whatever stupid term they use for these things to be able to watch it. Or maybe you had to have the additional, I forget which movie service that is that they have. Anyway, so I enjoyed those first 2 episodes, like I said, but once Agent Cooper was freed from the Black Lodge and assumed the role of Dougie Jones, I basically, after a few of those episodes, I was just basically hate watching it because I hated all that stuff with Dougie Jones. Maybe not hated, but man, it was really irritating me. It reminded me, all this stuff. I kept thinking of the original series, the 2 seasons they did, where they had the soap opera plot lines that I just did not care about, especially in the second season, because they were filling it out because it was more than what Lynch wanted to do. And so I felt like those plot lines were repeated for much of the middle part of the series. However, I did enjoy the musical performances that we got to see, especially at the end of, I think, every episode, except maybe one. I don't know. And I got to appreciate Lynch's sound design for many of the episodes. It's the first time I've really appreciated the design of sound for a entertainment medium. Because most sound design is just kind of background and to help support the narrative, the acting that we're seeing, the visuals we're seeing. But the sound design for Twin Peaks: The Return is almost a minor character in itself. So anyway, if Lynch didn't win an Emmy for that, I don't know what they were doing with those awards. Anyway, and that last scene with Cooper and Laura Palmer was really creepy, especially the very last thing. But it was just overall unsatisfying, which is too bad because I really, really loved the first season of Twin Peaks. The next thing that my wife and I watched together, or one of the things that my wife and I watched together, was Revival, that adaptation of the comic book series by Celia Norton. And I quite enjoyed it. Even though the ending of the season, or maybe the series, I don't know if it's been renewed, was not quite satisfying. Not as satisfying as where the comic book series left off at that point in the plot. I love Melanie Scrofano's Dana Cypress, and really disliked David James Elliott's Sheriff Cypress, her father, because basically all he did was yell the entire time. It was just annoying. I felt like they didn't give Romy Weltman's character M enough to do besides be angry through much of the latter part of the series. But if it comes back, I will gladly watch it. My wife and I also finished Diplomat Season 3. After so much anticipation for the return of the series, when it got to the end, I was very disappointed. Seems to be a recurring theme here, huh? The budding relationship between Kate and Dennison, the UK Foreign Secretary, was dropped before it really began for some reason. And then there was Kate inexplicably throwing herself back into her estranged husband's arms, just made me throw up my hands, literally, as I was watching it. But the ending, just like the previous seasons, makes me crave season 4. So hopefully they right that ship, because it's in many ways, it's such a really good and intriguing series. Another show my wife and I have been watching, and we just finished season 2 as of this recording, Nobody Wants This. This is a new comedy starring Kristen Bell as Joanne and Adam Brody as Noah, about 2 very different people. One is starts out as, anyway, a raunchy podcaster with her sister, and Noah is a rabbi. And it tells their story of them meeting, falling in love, and navigating a relationship. While the leads do a wonderful job, especially in the second season, Kristen Bell, as usual, is just perfect. It's the supporting cast, especially Joanne's sister and Noah's brother, and their relationship, their friendship, that really makes me enjoy the show. It's quirky, funny, and messy, much like Joanne and Noah's relationship and the other relationships in the show, especially in the second season. So, and if you're looking for, a romantic comedy that's really good, this is one of those. And then finally, in terms of television, my wife and I, again, we watched Staged, the 2 seasons of that. So a little background on this. I had been seeing clips from this show. I didn't realize it was they were clips from a particular show at that time on Instagram. But it was David Tennant and Michael Sheen, and so I was, and I find them very funny. There's the two of them going back and forth with each other and cracking jokes, and also just being kind of nasty to each other in a funny way. But then I was going through the Roku channel and found this thing called Staged. And so I find this, I'm like, oh, this is where I'm seeing all these things from on social media. And basically the premise of the first season of Stage is that it was set during the first year of the pandemic, and they filmed it then too. And it was a bunch of Zoom meetings between David and Michael playing, I'll just say, heightened versions of themselves as they prepared for a play that they were going to do before the pandemic closed it down. There's a lot of improv here, and like I said, great back and forth between the actors. There were 3 series or seasons of this, but only 2 of them are on Roku, and the other one we'd have to get a subscription to BritBox or something, which I am seriously considering just so I can watch the 3rd season of this. I highly recommend this if you like those 2 actors. Okay, let's switch to movies. A bunch of these things that I want to talk about. The first of which was Thunderbolts, aka The New Avengers. And this was, like I said, these are going to be some just real quick thoughts on these movies. I found this one kind of messy with characterizations, but no, also at the same time, I loved, the guy from Stranger Things, the adult, I can't remember his name, playing that, the Red Guardian character. I love that. Plus Pugh's character. But I felt the pacing was a bit off of it, but still a very enjoyable movie. I did not expect that I would get a treatise on mental health in a Marvel movie. And at the time that I watched that, it really hit home for me. And at that point, I felt like this is the best Marvel movie that we've had in a very long time. And then I watched, and I regret it now, Plan 9 from Outer Space. I have known for years, decades even, that this is a cult classic. And I've always wanted to see what the hubbub was about. And oh my God, it's just so bad. And not in the, it's so bad it's good way. It's just bad. Bad. It made me question, why is this a cult classic? It's just bad. I would not recommend watching this movie at all. However, I would wholeheartedly recommend watching Superman 2025. From the trailer to the two times I watched this in the theater, I loved it. I love Corn Sweat's performance, and that his young Superman exuded hope and empathy despite the trials he faced. He's the best Superman we've had since Christopher Reeve. Sorry for the other folks that like the previous guy. I liked him too. But this is the Superman we need. However, in this movie, it was Brosnahan's Lois Lane that blew me away. I think she's the best Lois we've ever had. Again, apologies to the original Superman Lois Lane and others that we've had over the years. I want a solo movie featuring her. We're never going to get it, but I would love to see more of her. Superman and Clark were better when Lois was around and involved in his story directly. Holtz Luthor, on the other hand, was a wee bit over the top, shall we say. I preferred Hackman's more nuanced evilness, despite the jokey nature of, Superman the movie. But, I'm very much looking forward to the next one, Supergirl as well. So yeah, this restart of the DC movie lineup is it really hit it out of the park with Superman. So, And then I was also really looking forward to Fantastic Four First Steps. The trailer looked really good. I like Pedro Pascal. He doesn't quite have the look of Reed Richards, but whatever. They're actors doing a role. Can they perform the role? And I felt like the actors, with one exception, did a really great job portraying those characters as I see them, and within the confines of the story and plot that they set up. I liked a lot about this film, from their portrayals, like I said, to the special effects, to the setting, which was the time that the Fantastic Four was first debuted in their 60s. And so we have that setting and that look. And I love the 60s look in film and television. So I was all for that. It was good. But I felt like pacing was an issue. There's a lot of things that time just kind of sped up, or they focused on something for too long. I don't know. It's just, I felt like the pacing was an issue in this film. Also an issue, Ebon Moss-Bachrach's voice as a thing. Maybe it was the theater I was in, but I often had trouble hearing him. Plus, I thought his performance was pretty one note, and our ever-loving blue-eyed thing deserved better, I felt. Although I felt like he inhabited Ben Grimm. It's just his performance was, I don't know. I think Ben can be a lot more blustery, and this guy chose to perform Ben as more pensive, and I just didn't care for it. Anyway, it's all interpretation. A movie I saw multiple times, and yes, I loved it. K-pop Demon Hunters. At least, the first couple times I saw it. After about the 10th or 12th time, because my grandkids also love it and they constantly want to watch it. And I'm exaggerating. It was probably more like 5 or 6. But anyway, the luster wore off maybe just a bit. However, I thought the story and musical performances were delightful, and it's just different from everything else that's other IP. We get a lot of IP stuff, and this is a new IP, but it's new. And so I'm looking forward to, if they do another one, they could easily do a sequel, prequel. It's just, I just thought it was really unique for everything else that was out at the time. And every time I watch it, I laugh every time Mira has one of her funny lines. So let's see. Next, my wife and I went to the theater to watch Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere. And this movie really had an impact on me. I basically sobbed through the second half of the film, given all of the daddy issues Springsteen, the character, was dealing with in the movie, and his overall depression that they hint at, but don't really show until the very end, which I thought that was a missed opportunity, but whatever. And that scene at the end there that was really impactful, where Jeremy Allen White's Springsteen is trying to talk to the therapist that he goes to, just opened a floodgate of tears for me. Because Springsteen's asked, how do you feel? Or what are you feeling? I forget the exact line, but White's portrayal of that confusion and anger and sadness and distraughtness was just spot on. And the way he opened his mouth for the words to come out and they don't. They're stuck in his throat and they can't get out. I have gone through that in my last year's sessions with my therapist. It's just different reasons, but it was very familiar. And there's a point earlier in the film where Springsteen, because during the course of the film, we see what I think is memories, because they're in black and white. There's Springsteen remembering things from his childhood, and he had a lot of daddy issues. And so we're in the midst of one of these memories, and all of a sudden, the dad turns and looks at his son, And it's the adult Springsteen standing there now. And the dad says, "What do you want?" And Springsteen just looks at him and says, "I just want to hear your voice." And I lost it then too. Anyway, White's performance was phenomenal, and it was a very interesting movie for a lot of different reasons. But besides that, it got me to listen to Nebraska all the way through. I've listened to songs before, but I don't think I really appreciated the album until I watched this movie. And then I listened to that album like 2 or 3 times in a row. There's a few singles on there that are just so good. And I see why they made a movie about Springsteen trying to create that album. So I highly recommend go watch the movie, go listen to Nebraska, whether you watch the film or not. And then my final movie that we basically just watched recently at the time of this recording is Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. I love these Knives Out movies. Not only do they star my favorite James Bond actor, Daniel Craig, I really like Rian Johnson's approach to making these films and his filmmaking generally. There were parts of this film, especially at the beginning and a little bit towards the end, where characters were talking about faith or their faith or others' faith, and the lighting behind them would shift, mirroring what they were saying, whether it was things got lighter, more illuminated, or darker in the scene. And there's a few times where it's really blatant and obvious, but a few other times where it is less so. But either way, it was just a wonderful way to use lighting in that way, especially because, they're in a church at one point talking about this stuff, and there are the windows behind them, and you're seeing the changes in lighting because of the weather, the clouds covering up the sun and moving away from this. So it makes sense from a naturalistic standpoint, but it, thematically, emotionally, it's just like, wow, that was really cool. Also, I loved how this was not only a Benoit Blanc mystery, which is, by the way, what I think they should subtitle these films. Instead of a Knives Out, it should be Wake Up Dead Man, a Benoit Blanc mystery. I don't know why they haven't done that, but I did read recently that I think they're going to do that on the next one. So good for them. So it's not only a mystery for Blanc that he attempts to solve. It is a meditation on faith across the spectrum, from the character Father Judd's strong belief about faith as transformational to his counterpoint Monsignor Wick's use of faith as a weapon, as a bludgeon, and finally to Blanc's rejection of faith completely. So if you liked any of these Knives Out movies, this is the best one, and I highly encourage you to go watch it, and I can't wait for the next one, obviously. Okay. Now to podcasts. I have several of these to talk about as well, and then I will let you go if you're still here. All right, first up is the Monitor Tapes, a Crisis on Infinite Earths podcast hosted by DC Dave and Doug Adamson, where they explore topics relating to the seminal 1985 maxi series that redefined the DC universe until the next crisis, and the next crisis, and the next crisis. Anyway, if you're looking for something to fill the Crisis Tapes gap, and I'm looking at you, Peter and Murd, if you're listening, this is the show for you. The Monitor Tapes is not an index show, and I like how they jump around and they have guests on and they talk about Crisis and what it means and to comics and DC Comics. And anyway, I just really enjoy it. Another non-index show that I'm really enjoying is one called Long Live the Legion. Yes, I listen to other Legion-related podcasts besides the Legion Project. However, I will say Jim and Jeff do a great job of discussing various topics, including member spotlights, specific storylines, eras of the Legion, and interviews with creators. And recently there was, I think, one with the current editor, DC, who will take on editorship over the new Legion book that's coming out. So that was a very interesting interview. Anyway, I highly recommend it if you like listening to Legion of Superheroes podcasts, and maybe Peter and I can do a podcast crossover with them someday. Hint, hint. Next up is Ideas Don't Bleed. This is a comic book creative interview show hosted by another creative, Matthew Rosenberg. It's different from my favorite comic book interview show, Off Panel, mostly from the creative to creative Q&A that they do. And I've been listening to there's lots. He has a lot of interviews in the feed. And I listen to the ones where the creative folks that he has on are ones I'm interested in. So a lot to pick and choose from. Here's a couple scripted podcasts that I listened to last year. The first one is Lovecraft Investigations. It's a modern take on the Cthulhu stories, with a couple of podcasters investigating what increasingly becomes a disturbing and deadly set of cases that loosely follow some of Lovecraft's books. There were times when I couldn't get to the next episode fast enough to hear what happened next. And fortunately, I was able to basically binge the 4 seasons of it that were available. However, it was kind of tough to get to them because the BBC removed at the time of this recording anyway, they removed the first 2 seasons from the RSS feed for some stupid reason. But if you go to bbc.com, the first season is there, but not the second. So I don't understand what they're doing there. Why not just have it there all the time for everybody? When I was listening to it, I listened to the first season or 2. And no, it was the first season, and the 3rd season was available in the feed. And I had to go hunt down the 2nd season, and it was on archive.org. And I think all 4 of those seasons are there now. So, your mileage may vary about this availability of this podcast, but it was a lot of fun. And if you're into Cthulhu stuff, and I'm not, but I really enjoyed it, give Lovecraft Investigations a try. And of course, being a Star Trek fan, I was going to listen to this no matter what. Star Trek Khan, and whose goal was to provide more about Khan Noonien Singh from that classic Star Trek episode Space Seed and the Wrath of Khan movie, filling out his background after Kirk strands him, or delivers him, maybe is the better term, to Ceti Alpha 5. I thought they did a really good job of rounding out Khan as a character and making him more of a sympathetic character who is transformed over time to the vengeance-seeking madman we see in the movie. And there is a very specific reason for that, more than what they revealed in the movie. Of course, this was written decades later. So I thought that was an interesting addition to the mythos. Will they follow up on that? I don't know. More important to me, at least, is how much we learn about former Enterprise officer Marla McGivers. And I felt her part of the story was much more interesting to me. So, the fact that she, and this is not a spoiler because you find this out in The Wrath of Khan, she dies, and we get to see how that happened and the impact of that on Khan. I quite enjoyed it. They did a good job on this. And then finally, podcast-wise, it's a somewhat newer podcast, although several episodes are out in the feed at this point. Once We Were Spacemen. This is a Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk situation where they join forces to talk about their careers, and many of the episodes they have their Firefly co-stars on. I find it very funny and entertaining, and Alan Tudyk makes me laugh out loud several times over the course of the episodes I've listened to. So if you're interested in either of those actors and their careers, go find that. It's easy to find, because it stars, them. So anyway, that is all I have for you, catching you up for what I did in 2025. So anyway, if you'd like to send me comments about anything that I brought up here, please send me email at longboxreview@gmail.com. You can leave voicemail or text me at 208-953-1841. And I highly encourage you to leave a voicemail, because I would love to do a another feedback episode where I can play these voicemails or just read back. Either way, no pressure, but send me some stuff. Or you can converse with me via social media at Longbox Review. Don't forget, as I mentioned before, you can buy Longbox Review merch at my TeePublic store, link in the show notes. And also check out my personal blog, kane.wordpress.com if you'd like. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you in 2026. Bye-bye.